Guys, hello. Today we're going to be talking about how to effectively use sources in writing. So we have a guide to conducting research, evaluating sources, and properly citing them. So, introduction. So why is using sources important? Does anybody know the answer to that? It said them right on the screen. So support your argument with evidence, which you want to do. You want to support your evidence or support your argument with your evidence. So it makes you credible, right? It makes you look like you've done your research, and you can show that by using those resources that you have found. And that makes your paper credible to your audience. The audience is going to see that you have sources from reliable websites and um, the library, any kind of credible evidence, which we will talk about a little bit later. So yeah, showing your research makes your argument stronger, it supports it, and it makes your paper credible, makes you look credible. So types of resources, types of sources. You have primary sources, which is original material. Examples of that would be like historical documents, interviews that you might do with people, experiments that you have done. Those are primary sources. Secondary sources come from interpretations on analysis. So say you take an experiment that somebody else did and you interpret it and put it into your own words, the interpretations. So that's going to be a secondary source. Examples of those could be books, journals, articles. Those are all secondary sources that you are interpreting. Okay. So the third one is, which I have a trouble saying this, tertiary, I can't say that word. I'm going to look it up so I know how to pronounce it correctly. Tertiary, all right, let's see how we pronounce this then. Tertiary, tertiary. That's a hard word for me. Tertiary. Okay, so tertiary means third in order, third in importance, or at a third stage of development. Okay, so here's an example of tertiary. Tertiary. I cannot say that word. Tertiary. Tertiary. That's a hard one for me for some reason. So he must have come to know those philosophers through secondary or tertiary sources. Tertiary sources. Okay, I got it now. So anyway, those are overviews or summaries of a topic. So an example would be encyclopedias, fact books. Those would be examples of those. Okay. One more time. Tertiary, tertiary, tertiary. Okay, got it. So, choosing reliable sources, you want to build your credibility. So, you want to look for authors with expertise or credentials in the subject. So, if you wanted to talk to somebody about, sorry guys, yawning. If you wanted to talk to somebody about English, you could come to me because you know I'm an English teacher. I have had to take extensive um, um, academic courses in it. I've learned about it. I have a degree in it. So, you know, with my master's degree, I have had to study that at length, and I could be a credible source about English. You could talk to me about it, right? If you wanted to talk to somebody about, I don't know, accounting, you could talk to an accountant, right? Um, credibility, if you wanted to talk to somebody about acting, you would talk to an actor. Because because they are credible in that area of expertise. They know because they've done it. They have the experience and the knowledge to be credible at it. Another thing you have to think about is bias. Ensure the source is unbiased and objective. Well, if you came to me and was like, hey, which is better, math or English? Well, you know I'm going to be biased and say English because I love it. I love English. I love all things English, and I hate math. I don't understand math. Math is very hard for me. So, of course, I'm going to have some bias and say English is better. You also have to think about, like, of course, I'm like, yay, Beacon, because I work for Beacon. I love Beacon. I love what we do at Beacon. So, of course, I'm going to be biased and say that Beacon rules. But there are other things too that you need to consider when you consider bias. Say someone did an experiment for, I don't know, Eli Lilly. It's a medication company, right? So say that they do all these experiments and they come up with a new medication. Well, of course, they're going to be biased and want to make money for their company, Eli Lilly. So there could be some bias in there, and they not come forward with the true results of their experiment because they want to make their company money. So there definitely could be some bias in there. Or say like a professor who is writing an article for their college. There could definitely be some bias in there toward their college because they could want to do really well and make their college look really well. Um, and so they have some bias in there. Another thing that you need to pay attention to is the publication date. You want to use recent sources for up-to-date information. Of course, that doesn't mean always. There are some things that, say you're doing a paper or an essay over what happened in history versus now, what's changed, something like that, then you're going to look for those older publication dates. But if you are doing research on like social media or like I don't know, something that's happening right now in our society, then you want to use up-to-date publication dates. You want to use the latest and newest information to make yourself more credible. Of course, always keep an eye on the publisher. Prefer academic journals, university presses, or reputable publishers. And we're going to talk more about that. So make sure that you're not using .com, that you're not just using any kind of reference source like on Facebook. You don't want to use a Facebook post unless you're actually talking about one person and it's that person's Facebook post, right? Okay. So evaluating online sources. Here's where we're going to talk about the edu, .gov, and .org sites are often more reliable. Be cautious of .com websites. They might be biased or unreliable, which most of the time they are. That's why we choose not to use them. They don't fact check. They just spew information. Check the author's qualifications and the public. Sorry, another yawny. Check the author's qualifications and the publication date. So most authors, you can easily look up online. You can Google their name and come up with information about them. You can see who they work for. Usually what other publications they have published, that kind of thing, and you want to pay attention to the publication dates. Use databases like Google Scholar, JSTOR, or your school's library online resources. I always suggest using the library's online resources because the library has resources that have been peer reviewed, they have been fact checked, They are very credible sources, and I think it's the best source that you could use to gather your sources to make you seem more credible. So, using quotes and paraphrases. So we have direct quotes. You want to use those sparingly and only when the exact wording is important. So this is where your credibility can really be built. Using those direct quotes to back up what you're saying and help you prove a point is what's going to build your credibility. Now, you don't want to take like a paragraph and quote the whole paragraph. That's what they're saying. Use sparingly and only when the exact wording is important. So you want to use as little quoting as possible, but you want to use enough that gets your point across and builds your credibility. Okay. Paraphrasing. Put information into your own words. This shows understanding and avoids overuse of direct quotes. Okay. So putting information into your own words really helps. You still have to cite that. You still have to cite where you've got the information. Even if you are putting it into your own words, you still want to give credibility for the ideas that came from the author that wrote it. Okay. Summary. Condense long information to the key points in your own words. Okay, so that's basically paraphrasing. You're just condensing it. You can use summary a lot when you are asked to summarize or contrast sources. You also could use that in an annotated bibliography because you would be summarizing your sources. So, integrating sources into your paper. So, you always want to introduce the source. Okay, explain who the author is and what their point of view is. This is so important to introduce your source. Give the full title name, full author name, and explain a little bit about the source. Don't just say, okay, here's the author, here's the source, and then spew a bunch of stuff about it and quote from it. Tell me about that source a little bit. Okay, tell me about the author. Where does the author work? Build that credibility for me. Make me see that this is a credible source that you are using, and then that builds your credibility. Not only that, but when you have an essay that requires a word minimum, introducing a source can build that word count for you. So you're not struggling to meet that word count. You can talk about the source and the author and introduce them. And that can fill up quite a bit of your word count, and it really helps. So use evidence, right? Provide the facts, the statistics, or examples from the source to support your argument. That is going to build your logos, your logic, okay? So use that evidence out of there, take those little quotes, take those little statistics and put them in there. Just got to make sure that you give credit where credit is due and in-text cite. Okay, analyze and explain. Don't just drop the quotes, right? Analyze them and explain how they support your thesis. Tell me how the quote that you're using builds your credibility. How does it fit into your ideas that you're trying to convince me, right, of? So you want to say like, okay, phones in the classroom, how they can be important, how they can be useful toward educational purposes. You could have a statistic from a experiment done where they used Kahoot on phones in a classroom and how it raised grades by 10%. Of course, use that. Say in so-and-so author's piece, how cell phones are used in the classroom for academic gain. The author states that cell phone use to play Kahoot during class rose grades 10%. Then go on to explain that. Then you can say, this proves my point that using cell phones in a classroom can be beneficial because it can help raise grades by playing academic games during class. Okay, so that's how you would use that. Sorry, that was probably a really bad, it was just off the fly on the top of my head. So I apologize if that was confusing. Okay, citation basics. So why cite? Because it avoids plagiarism, right? It gives credit where credit is due and allows readers to find the source. If they want to look up more information about it, they can go to that source and find where you got your information and find more information if that's what they choose to do. So popular citation styles, MLA, that is for Common English and Humanities papers. So if you plan to go to college and you take an English class, be prepared to use MLA or APA. I, in my college class, I use AP or MLA, sorry. That is for English. I do know APA fairly well too, but I prefer MLA because it's an English class. APA is common for social sciences. So if you plan to do anything with social sciences, you definitely want to write an APA and learn that. Chicago is often used in history and other fields. I don't know a lot about Chicago style. I know during college, because I was an English major, we usually used MLA or APA. I didn't have Chicago, not one time. But I did work in the Writing Center and saw Chicago style and got familiar with it a little bit, but I haven't worked with it in a long time. So MLA and APA are going to be your two main ones. So for MLA citation example, basically it's an in-text citation. You're going to have the author's last name and in either the page number or paragraph number. Now that can be done in different ways because you can say like we'll say I'm an author just because we'll say Lassiter wrote a sentence and quote the sentence, and then you can just put the page or paragraph number in it. But if you say the author wrote and then you quote, then you have to put Lassiter and then the page or the paragraph number in quotations. And then the period, which this drives me insane, the period always goes after the parentheses. It goes at the end of the sentence. And your parenthesis, your in-text citation is part of that sentence. So you can't put a period at the end of your quote because that's not the end of your sentence. A works cited entry on your last page. Your works cited entry goes on its own page. It starts at the top. An MLA citation example for that would be the author's last name, the author's first name, the title of the book, the publisher, and then the year of publication. Okay. Title of the book should be in italics. I don't know why that's not, but it should be. If it's an article or something other than a book, it would be in quotations. They do go in alphabetical order by the author's last name or the very first thing of the entry. So say it didn't have an author, it didn't name an author, the title of the book or the article would be what you would use to do a alphabetical order. An example for the in-text citation is Smith 45. Okay. So I wanted to show you some examples. So this is for a works cited page. Okay. Avoiding plagiarism. Plagiarism is using someone else's words or ideas without crediting them. How to avoid? Always cite your sources, paraphrasing, summarizing, quoting, all of those things. You have to cite your sources. Use your own words when paraphrasing. Keep track of all the sources you use during research. Make sure you do that because it can get very confusing and hard to find your sources. So either save a live link that you know works or make sure that you download them and save them in a special folder so that you have them for the exact academic paper that you're writing or the experiment you're doing, whatever you're doing it, label the file that you're keeping all your sources in for that specific assignment. Okay, so example for a book. Book with one author. So you could see how it's last name Smith, first name John, and then the book is in italics, the study of history. It was produced by Penguin Books in the year 2015. Now, if there is a live link or a DOI, that should go after that, and then your access date should be next. Okay. So, example for a scholarly article. This is an article from a journal. So it would be Doe, last name, Jane, first name, and then the title of the journal, the impact, or I'm sorry, the article name from the journal would be the impact of social media on communication in quotations from the Journal of Communication Studies, volume 22, number 3, and then the date, okay? And then it gives the page numbers. And then there should be a DOI or a URL and then the access date, okay? So example from a website or example for a website. So Jones is the last name. Sarah is the author's first name. The name of the website or the article from the website, sorry, how to navigate college admissions in quotations. The website is College Admissions Guide. And I'm pretty sure that that should be in quotations or italics, sorry. Just like Journal of Communication Studies, that should be in italics too, because the publication should be in italics. Then this one has the date, 20th of September 2021. As you can see, the date is day, month, year, and that is correct. And then this one provides the URL. So it should have an access date on there too, when of the day you access it in the same kind of format of day, month, year. Okay, so I'm glad I showed you some examples. Okay, tools to help with citation. So when you get to citation and you're going, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. Okay, so there are citation generators, websites like EasyBib, Citation Machine, or Zotero can create citations for you. Make sure that you check your work. Use plagiarism checkers like Turnitin to make sure you're not accidentally plagiarizing. Okay. I can tell you at Ivy Tech, as a professor there, we do use Turnitin to check your work. It goes through that software every single time that you turn in a paper. All right, guys. So conclusion, key takeaways here. Choose reliable sources and evaluate their credibility always. Integrate sources effectively into your paper. Know how to cite them, right? Cite sources properly to avoid plagiarism always. You can flunk a course in college if you do plagiarize. Remember, using sources strengthens your writing, making it more authoritative and persuasive. It absolutely does. Okay, guys, that's all I have for you today. Let's stop the share. All right. So, let me get this off of here. All right, guys. So, as you know, I am available through live sessions. You can always pop on, ask questions. I am available through my help session that I have on Thursdays, 1:30 to 2:30 in our homeroom. For any English questions that you might have, you can always reach me on Ring, send me a text, shoot me an email through Canvas. I'm always happy and willing to help. All right, guys, have a good day.